It's our podcast each week, each Wednesday at 7 p.m., where we bring you movers and shakers, great achievers, and let them share with you their approach to life, their philosophies, their attitude, how they overcame obstacles to achieve. Because as far as I'm concerned, our young people hear enough about all the obstacles in life and how the bad history and everything else and how unfair the world is. Well, we are the exact opposite. I'm here to say to you that regardless of all of that, you can be whoever you want to be, and we're here to show you how, and we're here to give you some positive information to attack the world and get where you want to go. And I think I'm halfway good at that because that's the way I was raised, and I just want to pass it on what people passed on to me, and it's just gave me an attitude and outlook on life where I just believe I could do anything I wanted to do, and that opinion has not changed because we're in a great country. I think we're in the greatest country on earth, and I start with that attitude, and I can honestly say in my life, if I didn't achieve something I set out to achieve, it was my fault. I didn't do the right things, and I want everybody else to know that. And hey, look, we're also here to help you avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. But sometimes wisdom, mistakes, and learning through error or trial and error is part of the wisdom. So uh, I mentioned, I met a lot of people, not a lot, a few people in life. Just first time you meet them, they just have a great spirit. I told you about my dad. I told you about my grandson. Here locally, I think about people like Dr. Teresa Foster, who's the education director at Hospitality House, and just people with just great spirits. So I say that to say this. I'm very excited about our guest this afternoon, Senator Rudy Boschwitz and his wife Ellen. And so we're going to be talking to them this evening very shortly here. And I'm just excited about them and their spirit. First time I met Senator Boschwitz and his wife Ellen, I just felt some good things coming from them. You could tell that they were patient and they were willing to help, and they're servants and help people. And even at this stage, they're still carrying that tradition. So we'll talk to them here shortly. I normally start off about talking about something that happened during the week. This was the week of the Olympics, and I just love the Olympics. Uh, it's one place where people put all their differences aside, all their pettiness, all the marching, disagreeing with each other, and we just come together and they play for their country. And just to see all of the athletes from all over the world and draping their country's flag around them. And it's just the unity and the peacefulness and the joy that the Olympics represent that has really caught my attention. I have to say now, I was very disappointed because I got to know what's her name, Shakari Richardson, the 100-meter sprinter, and I became a big fan of hers. And some of you may know she was disqualified from participating in the Olympics because she tested positive for, I think it was for marijuana, and her mom had just died and everything, and the Olympics didn't care about that. And I'm one. I believe in the principle of laws and rules and regulations. And so even though I didn't like seeing her eliminated, I understood she knew what the rules were and she disobeyed the rules, and there's normally consequences for that. So, I tell everybody it's easy to be principled when your principles support what you want. The challenge of being principled is that if it gives you a result that you don't want, but you're still standing on principle. So I didn't want to see her out of the Olympics, but once again, she knew the rules. And as my 8th grade science teacher, Mr. Bamford, used to always say, he had 2 sayings. One was, lost time is never found. And the other one was, forewarning is fair play. So I heard his voice ringing in my ear when she didn't make the Olympics. Here locally, Suni Lee, one of our ladies from the Hmong community, she won gold in gymnastics, and I got quite a few friends in the Hmong community, and I'm going to see, can I get Miss Lee on my broadcast. We saw Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast of all times. She struggled a little bit. She had to take some time off, and I kind of understand that also. She just need to, I mean, sometimes people do things because they love doing it, they want to achieve in it, and the fame that comes with it is not something they counted on, and just dealing with that. And as she said, was quoted as saying, she was doing it for her, and she found out that she really was not. And once again, that's the challenge, because once you become famous, if you can get caught up in what other people want you to do and what other people want you to be and lose yourself. So it was great to see her recalibrate there. The surprise, I guess, of the Olympics was the Italian male that won the 100 meter. And for the first time since I can remember, someone from our country, America or Jamaica, didn't win that particular competition, which defined the fastest man on earth. And then our basketball team, both men and women, they're doing well. The men had a few hiccups during the trial, but it looked like they corrected the ship. And I think the last I saw, America had 79 medals altogether total, and I think China had 70. So we're still out there kicking butt for the free world, representing the free world. So I feel good about that. So that's my week. That was the highlight of my week. Of course, always seeing my grandson. It will always be a part of that. And I make sure I don't have any week where I don't see him. So that was always, you can count on that one. So having said that, having talked about the Olympics, let's get down to some business tonight. And I'm going to bring on my guest, Senator Rudy Boschwitz, and his wife, Ellen. Good evening, Senator Boschwitz. How are you doing?
Okay, we're doing just fine.
Okay, and good evening, Ellen. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, and you heard me talking about it. I met, and I think the first time I heard of Ellen was I was at a luncheon with Senator Boschwitz, and she was somewhere doing some yoga, a yoga class or something. Do I remember that correctly? Ellen, you're still into yoga and things like that. Why don't you remind me your connection with yoga before we get started here?
Well, I do it. I try to do it every day. It's a very important part of my life, not just the exercise, of course, is good, but the spiritual and the personal growth, the spiritual growth is really the most important. And I feel that it's affected my life in a good way, and made me more patient, more tolerant, and also understanding, that this is a journey, but what we're on, and we're always learning. And we shouldn't, today the teacher said, well, your past mistakes are your past mistakes, and you shouldn't, berate yourself for that, but you should keep walking forward and try to be a better person, or, and try to bring out the best in yourself, which is already within you.
So Ellen, is it ever too late for someone like me to start yoga? Will I ever get to the point where I'm good at it, even though my muscles and things aren't what they used to be? Am I to assume that yoga would help with all that good stuff? And
Definitely, yes, for sure, it would help you gain flexibility, absolutely. But anybody at any age can do it. You don't have to do hot yoga or try to get your leg around your head, but do what you can do and just enjoy it.
Okay. Well, Senator Boschwitz, I think you were born in, I think, Berlin. Is that correct? And moved
Yes.
to yes. So why don't you give us a little background of your family and how you ended up here in Minnesota? And then, of course, I'm going to ask the first $64,000 question. How did you and Ellen meet?
Oh,
So tell me a little bit about how you got here to Minnesota.
Our parents knew one another, and my father said, you ought to go over and meet Ellen Lowenstein. And so I did. And I drove him up to Lake Placid, New York, where he stayed for the summer. And he wanted me to stay with him because my mom had already passed. And I said, well, I have to go. I just had graduated from law school. And I said, well, I have to go to work the way you've been suggesting for some time. And he thought, I can stay with you for 2 weeks, I said. Well, he thought he'd introduce me to a young woman, and he did. And I stayed all summer, and I proposed to Ellen at the end of the summer.
Tell our audience how long you and Senator Boschwitz been married, Ellen.
Oh, 65 years.
Whoa. And I don't know, either one of you or both of you can take this one. If you had to name 2 or 3 things that's the secret to longevity in marriage, well, basically it boils down to meeting your wedding vows and the commitment you made to definitely do your part. What's the give us 2 or 3 little secrets you have, and if you got different secrets, I'll take both of your set of secrets.
Well,
go ahead.
I do the dishes, and you know, I fix coffee for Ellen in the morning, and I'm part of the action at home.
Okay. I think you have it right, because my wife and I, we've been together over 40 years. We've been married over 34 years. And
40,
I think,
40,
yeah,
you're on your way.
yeah, me and my wife been together 40 years, and I think you're right. And I tell everybody, it makes me a better man. It makes every man a better man if you can. There's certain characters you need for a successful marriage that all of us men need to learn if we don't know it. And so I really appreciate that. Now, I mentioned earlier that you were born. Where were you born at, Ellen, by the way? Are you a Minnesotan?
No, I actually was born in Switzerland and grew up in the New York area.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in New York as well.
So now, did you meet each other in New York, or did you meet each other here in Minnesota?
No, in
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Okay. And Senator Boschwitz, what made you and Ellen move to Minnesota?
Well, I wanted to start my own business, and Minneapolis and Minnesota were just all the right things were up here, and so that we came and started our business now almost 60 years ago.
Yeah. And for those in our audience too young to remember, and I was explaining this to the senator when we talked earlier this week, my first recognition of him was when he was doing the commercial for Plywood, Minnesota. And that's a business that you started. And just give us a quick idea of what made you decide to go into the Plywood, Minnesota business, and what drove that decision.
Well, my brother married also an immigrant from Europe, and her father was in the plywood business in Poland. And when he came to the United States, my brother's quite a bit older than I am. When he came to the United States, he started all over again, and my brother married his daughter, and then my brother started. I was a young lawyer. My brother started to talk to me about coming and working in Wisconsin, where he had a plywood factory, and that brought us from New York to Wisconsin, and we lived in a small town there, and from New York to Oshkosh. And then we decided we wanted to be on our own, and we moved to Minnesota, and I became my brother's best customer.
Oh, okay. That's a great story. Ellen, did you play any part in the startup or the running of Plywood, Minnesota?
Well, not in the startup, but later on, I was quite involved in the business. Yes, I was.
Now, I've met 2 types of couples who work together. One who says that they have fun all day long and everything, and then the other one says it's kind of challenging. Which one was it for you, Ellen? Because you're there together all day, working together, and was that challenging at all for you?
No, because um, I started working before Rudy was in the Senate, and then continued while he was in the Senate. So I really worked with my sons, and so it was, and I got along fine with them, and so
You-
um, it wasn't really a problem.
no, not every moment is wonderful, but it works.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was okay.
Excellent. And Senator Boschwitz, you were one of the first business owner to be your own upfront ad person. What went into that decision? Why didn't you hire some professional? And how did you decide that I'm going to do this myself?
Well, my advertising people said that people like to do business with other people, and that so you get on the television, and so they feel that they are doing business with the owner, and that's what started it, and that worked very well, and I liked it, and people liked it as well.
So I do have to do some due diligence on my guests before I have them on, of course. And I learned something new about you, Senator. So what is this about selling flavored milk at the state fair? I hear you were fairly famous for that. So fill us in on that. And if it was a family affair, Ellen, you jump in and add your perspective also. So tell us about that, Senator.
We, the farmers were always complaining that they weren't getting enough money for their milk. And I said, well, advertise so that you can bring in some new business. I said, if they can put a little flavoring in sparkling water and call it Coca-Cola, let's put a little flavoring into milk. And that's what started that. And in order to let the farmers know that it really should work, I started the milk house at the state fair, which was very nice. It was 12 very long, 10, 12-hour days, but it was, you get to meet people. They don't come to a senator's office so much, but they come to the state fair.
Okay. So once again, Ellen, did you play a role in that? Were you there by your side of your husband 12 hours a day? And
No, I don't, not every day, but I was out there. Yeah, it was fun. And we
okay.
had a great staff and people that volunteered. So, and everybody had a good time, except I have to say that Rudy, after 12 days of standing outside shaking people's hands, he always got a cold.
It was a good thing. I had a staff person there, a caseworker. And we got a lot of, people have complaints, people have problems with the government, and they will come and tell you about it at the state fair. And that was a large part of that whole thing. And we picked up a lot of casework and got a lot of things done for people because of that.
And they had great caseworkers, and the people that were with us were wonderful.
Wow. So, Senator, you have this business going on, and you're a very popular, well-known pitchman, and something got into you that says, "I'm going to go into politics." What was all that about, and what motivated you to go into politics and run for U.S. Senate?
Well, Lacey, I should ask you that question. but it was not part of the plan. I came to this country as a little boy, and I watched my dad struggle when he came to this country, and I just wanted to succeed and help my parents and help my family. But I gave money. I've always been a Republican, and I gave money to the Republican Party, so they knew I was a Republican, and they knew that my face was on TV, and they came around and recruited me. And I like politics. I like people.
Right. And Ellen, when he came to you and said they've been trying to get me to run for Senate, Ellen, what do you think? And what did you say? If you're allowed to repeat it exactly on a podcast, but what was your response to that?
Well, I guess we talked about it, and I was kind of lukewarm, but I said, this is something you really want to do, and you'll never, if you don't do it, you'll always regret it. And so I think you should do it.
When I talked to my father about it, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't like politics. He said, stick to business.
But you decided to go anyway. And did you? Yeah. I'm assuming that you haven't looked back with any regrets.
No,
because you got quite a bit done. And speaking of your politics, I think you were in the United States Senate during the administration of Reagan and Bush. Do I recall that correctly?
Carter, Reagan, and Bush the father.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Senior, George Bush Senior. Okay, good. Now you achieved quite a bit. Can you give us? Are you allowed to give us any inside stories about times you spent with either President Reagan or President Bush or both? You got any little story you want to share with our audience on that?
Well, I was all 8 years of Reagan. I was there, and I was in the leadership of the Republican caucus, and Bob Dole was the leader, but there were 4 or 5 others of us who had special jobs. And so we got to see Reagan. Every 3 weeks, we would get to see Reagan. He would always open with a joke, and he always had his jelly beans there. And when you talked about issues, if you talked about foreign affairs, if you talked about defense, if you talked about the budget, if you talked about the Russians, he was very much involved, but he wasn't so involved if I wanted to talk about milk, for instance, about the farmers. Then he would eat his jelly beans. As we talked beforehand, the Senate was a little bit different in those days. When we got elected, we went to Washington. We took our family. We bought a house, and almost all the other senators, unless they lived very nearby, did the same. So that now the senators and the congressmen, they don't buy a house. They don't bring their family to Washington. And that's part of the reason there's not as much cooperation as there was in our day.
Yeah, we talked about it. Like I say, I remember Tip O'Neill and President Reagan working together. I remember President Clinton and Newt Gingrich working together on some things. And actually, to be honest with you, I'm old enough. I never thought I'd see the type of divisions that we're seeing today. I think I'm hoping we're going to turn the corner on that. Even when we had drastically different political opinions, people worked together. And I think part of what you're saying, where you knew each other. I mean, it's hard to dislike someone you know. And I think you hit it on.
You know his wife, or she, his husband, and so forth. It's like with Newt and Clinton got along pretty well, and together they had 5 consecutive years where they had a budget surplus.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And that, boy, that was the greatest.
Yeah. So, Ellen, give me an idea how it was to be a senator's wife in Washington, D.C., and that whole culture there, and how you related to the other wives and things like that. How was it living in Washington, D.C. For the wife of a senator?
Well, the member, as soon as you get there, he's gone or she's gone, and they're consumed by the office. It's almost 24/7. So you have to find your way. And the Senate offers opportunities for the wives, and there are a lot of organizations and clubs. And there used to be a Red Cross. I don't know if it still exists, where the Senate wives would meet once a week, and they would knit or sew or whatever. And that was more productive during the war years, but it was kind of just a social group. And then we would host the First Lady at the Senate, and then she would reciprocate and have a beautiful luncheon at the White House. So, so that was, yeah.
I have to ask you, Senator Boschwitz, what consumed most of your time when you were in the Senate? Was it just issues coming up, just working issues? I know you had a staff, but give me an idea, give our audience an idea of, a typical day, if there's such a thing, in the life of a senator.
Lots of meetings, lots of Minnesotans coming down and wanting to talk to their senator. We, of course, had the session, too, on the Senate floor, and we had votes. It was busy. As Ellen said, it was a very, very busy lifestyle. But you had a sense of accomplishment, and so that it was worth doing. I liked my years in Washington.
Did you have a particular political hero or someone you looked up to before you decided to go into politics yourself? And before you answer that, I have to say mine was, I like Lincoln because I studied Civil War and JFK when I was growing up. So did you have, who was your Lincoln or JFK before you got into politics?
I voted for him in 1960. Those were my earliest vote was 1952. And I voted for Eisenhower. And I voted for Eisenhower for a second term. And then I voted for JFK.
Okay.
He was an inspirational figure, just as you said.
Yes. And I tell people, every presidential election, I try to go about things logically. I set out my top issues that I'm going to vote on. And just an FYI, the number one issue normally every year during is government reform. Number 2 is war and peace. Number 3 is the economy. And number 4 are the people in America who are struggling the most. And so those were the top 4 things that normally influence who I vote for. And speaking of that,
still the same issues.
Still the same issue. Yes. And that's where I was going. And you mentioned earlier that during the Clinton years, I think you mentioned you had a balanced budget each year. And I think we were in pretty good shape when Clinton left office, if I recall correctly. Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah. Well, Clinton was in 8 years. 4 of them were balanced budget, and I think the first year of W's term, all 5 of them may have been in the Clinton time.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the issues, and we know that. Well, first of all, I think they said they made the Senate a deliberative body, so you couldn't pass things a lot, and that it's the brakes on bad bills. But where I'm getting to, Senator, one of the issues that's always bugged me, and you got different philosophy on it, is our national debt. And during my lifetime, I've seen it blow up to, I think right now we're looking at $30 trillion. And should the average citizen be as concerned about that as I am, and especially when I hear how much, when you divide it up per American, how much money that is? What's your thought on the current national debt at $30 trillion and rising? And should we as citizens someday worry about paying the price for that?
Well, it's like your life and my life. If you get too much debt, you're in trouble. And there's really no different. The government cannot get so much debt. Interest rates, if interest rates rise on $30 trillion,
yes,
suddenly we're going to have much larger debt just paying the interest.
Yeah, and I don't think the average taxpayer realize how much of each of their tax dollar go towards just paying the interest on the debt, and
Yeah.
that's not even paying it down. But let's talk about something a little bit more enjoyable here. Uh, I saw where you were involved in airlift of Jewish uh, citizen from Ethiopia. I know you was some part of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. Tell us about some of those activities and what you're most proud of uh,
Well,
during your political service.
President Bush asked me to go to Ethiopia and negotiate the exit from Ethiopia of the black Jews of Ethiopia. And the blacks had only been taken off the African continent twice for a better life. And the first time was Operation Moses, when George H.W. Bush negotiated the exit 5,000 or 6,000 Jews, all blacks, to go to Israel. And then I negotiated Operation Solomon, where 14,500 black Jews went to Israel, and now there are 100,000, 120,000 black Jews in Israel. You know, I'd like to come back to something you said very early on. You talked about the United States as being a great nation, and it is, and you can do what you want to do, and there's lots of opportunity here, and that young people should think that they work hard, and if they learn and get themselves educated, they too can make a success for themselves and their family, and also for the entire community.
Yeah, and you mentioned why, because I was telling my engineer here earlier, I'm really a private person, but I thought that there were certain messages that our young people needed to hear. I thought there were certain course corrections we needed to make to solve these issues, because I'm a problem solver. And so business development, I think, is one thing. Free enterprise, the competition, and prepare our community for that competition, global competition even now. Just education, quality education. I'm pretty experienced and knowledgeable in that. And there's a certain portion of our population where it's always going to be a challenge. So I want to make sure that that happens. And we've touched on the family part of it. That's why it's so wonderful to have a husband and wife on, because really when you get down to it, that's probably the fundamentals of it. I just remember Jackie Kennedy Onassis talking about, if you fail at family, nothing else really matters. And so I'm trying to get people to focus on family and put our children first. Even if the country put our children first, I think we adults will stop a lot of bickering if we just focus on our children and think about what's good for them. And just like in your private life, when children hear adults bickering, that is not good. And we're setting such a bad example for our children on that. And we're creating mini-me's in that. But the other thing is just the faith. And I know we talked about that a little bit. I grew up a Southern Baptist, but I tell everyone, when I look over my life, the optimism, the drive, the confidence, it all comes from my roots in faith and going to church and the lessons that people taught me. So we're on the same page there. So when we look, that's been a lot going on here locally, Senator Boschwitz and Ellen, especially in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. And I'm just disappointed in a lot of things with this direction that the city is going. How do you got any input on the current state of the city of Minneapolis with defund the police and all those? And people have been upfront crazy ideas like that.
I don't like people with crazy ideas, I have a great respect for the police. They, of course, make mistakes, but they assure that there'll be peace, and I hope that peace will return totally for the Twin Cities. It was that way when we got here. It was just one of the things that brought us to Minnesota, is its excellent reputation of living a good life, And I trust all of that will be returned to Minnesota. I gather that it's going to take a little while. We've had a tough year and a half in Minnesota, and everybody in the nation knows that we had a tough year and a half, and some bad things happened.
Yeah.
Well, each one of us has to try and bring that back into focus, and good things should happen again. Good things like things that brought us here to Minnesota.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the fact that you said each one of us have to.
Yeah,
And I tell everyone, whatever the issue is, and I guess that's the reason, one of the reasons I've been married so long too. I always ask myself, what can I do about it? Before I look somewhere else for other people, whether for the world to change, I look first and foremost, and I guess as Michael Jackson said, the man in the mirror. So we're together on that. Just quickly here, what do you see as the some of the major issues facing our country, Senator Boschwitz and Ellen?
well, you mentioned one of the prime issues, and that is the debt. Somehow the government has to keep its spending just the way every family does. The government has to do it, keep its spending within its income. That's a very large issue. Uh, then, I'm like Reagan. It's a big world. America should be the leader of that world. And you heard me speak up in Brainerd. I think that the United States is a magnificent country, and we should be leaders, and we will be leaders again in this century if we don't think you can spend your way to prosperity, and because you got to pay for things.
Yes. And what would you say, though? I mean, there are a lot of young people out there, and some old, where they've just been fed the idea that America's not a good place to be, not a good place to grow a family, and some of them look around at their lives and they're not successful, and they tend to be able to believe it. What would you say to those? Well, for the, our situation, those young people out there who are so critical that they think we should even get rid of free enterprise capitalism. What would you say to people in the audience like that, Senator
Well,
Boschman?
as you know, I spoke about capitalism. It's the most productive economic system that's ever been devised. And young people should say, I'm going to get my place in that. I'm going to get my share. And in order to do that, you got to get yourself educated. You can't fool around with gangs or with guns, or you have to obey the law. And for young women, they shouldn't have babies before they're married.
Yeah, and that's consistent with what I'm saying too, because I just think, especially in my community, I'm saying to our men that we need to marry the mothers of our children. I'm a big believer in two-parent families. I think that makes a big difference. So we're talking things like that, but uh, I'm trying to say it with a little understanding and empathy of how we got here. But we need to challenge people, and I'm a big believer in self accountability. You have to and responsibility, and I'm pointing to everybody. And like I say, I'm not holding anyone else to any different standard to myself. Because first and foremost, I ask, what can I do, and what I need to be doing different to help resolve this issue. So this has been very good. I know I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just a couple of quick things to wrap up. The state of Minnesota. Well, let's get Ella's view of where do you think we are right now, Ella, and where are we going, and what should the citizens of Minnesota be looking to do about our future?
Well,
Tell him, Mom.
right away. No, I guess I've been thinking about it a lot, especially what's been happening in Minneapolis, and it's a huge tragedy. And one of the, I guess I'm being a mom. I look at the kids, and of course mothers, and I think about the education, and it has to start somewhere. And one of the places to start is to get better schools and teach the children. I mean, what they're being taught in the schools now is just not going to help them create a future for themselves. And so I think it starts even in kindergarten to just get the kids so they know how to read, and the kids are the future. And if
Yes.
we fail the kids, then we don't have a future. And I believe in the young people. I see a lot of bad stuff, but I also see a lot of great kids. And so I have faith in their optimism, their energy.
If you deal with young people,
They're wonderful.
yeah, they restore your faith.
They do, but
Yeah, it does.
but the education, especially in the inner city, I think that if it's the family and the education are where I would start if I could do anything.
Yeah, we did not talk about your children and grandchildren. How many children do you have, and how many grandchildren do you have?
Well, we have four. We had four sons. Unfortunately, our oldest passed away almost 3 years ago from cancer. So we have three, and we have seven grandchildren.
Oh, that's such a blessing.
Yeah.
And I guess the important question of the night, Senator Boschwitz, is who's responsible for supper this evening?
Who's responsible?
Who's supper? Who's dinner?
My favorite thing is
Oh.
when he asks what's for dinner, I say reservations, and so so we're gonna go out.
Well, Wednesday night is our sushi night, so
Aha.
we're gonna go and have sushi.
Well, I'm not going to delay you any longer from your sushi, but I really enjoyed our talk this evening. I want to have you back also one evening and delve in some more things, but I really appreciated you taking out time to share some thoughts with our audience. And once again, I'll end it by saying, and I say this to my audience in person, Senator Boschwitz and Ellen has such great spirits as far as patient and helpfulness and want to serve people. And we really appreciate that. And hopefully we'll get back to a time in America where the politicians will be setting good examples for us again. Any parting shots either one of you have before we go for our audience?
Don't lose faith in the United States of America. It is, as you said, really is the greatest country in the world. When you see how many people are trying to get in here,
Yes.
there's a reason.
Yes.
And it is a wonderful country, and the opportunities, don't let anybody talk to you and say there are no opportunities because you're black or you're this or you're that. Opportunities abound, and get yourself educated and you'll be fine.
We appreciate that very positive message, but I'll be remiss. And like I say, I've been married over 34 years, so I'm going to let Ellen have the last word because that's any last words from you, Ellen?
I do agree with my husband. He's right, but I also enjoyed very much being on this show with you, and I really enjoyed meeting you up in Brainerd. I liked your speech there, so I was very honored to be asked to be on this program with you. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm honored to have you. Go ahead, Senator.
You gave a hell of a speech up there in Brainerd.
I was thinking about your motivation all along. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again. And I am going to have you on the podcast again and delve into certain issue. Enjoy your sushi tonight. And we will talk fairly soon, Senator and Ellen. Thank you very much for being on Bright Lights. Thanks.
Thank you and good night.